Good morning, friends, and welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited that you're here today, and I am excited about today's video because this is the first in a series that I've been planning for a while. I'm going to be taking you along with me today while I sew myself a top, and I think it's going to be really fun to show you the process of how I make my own clothes. I've been planning to make quite a few pieces for my summer wardrobe, both to cut down on cost and just for the creative experience of making some new things. So I hope that you guys enjoy this. I know that one of the topics I get the most questions about is sewing, so I thought it would be fun to address this through these vlogs. So these are going to be really casual videos. I am just sitting in my dining room. I got back from work a few minutes ago and I made myself a London fog and I'm getting ready to sew. So I'm going to set everything up on this table over here and just take you along on the process. I'm not quite sure how detailed this will be as I go through it, but I hope it will be helpful just to see what you can make and maybe get some tips from how I sew. So I'm really excited about it and I hope you are too. And I'm going to go ahead and get my supplies together and get started. I'm also going to take you to where I have my inspirational images and kind of show you some of my planning process, and then we'll get started on the sewing. I think I'll time it too. We can see how long it takes to make this article of clothing. I think it'll be really fun, so if you're interested, please keep watching. So one of the things I really like to do when I'm getting started with a new project is to print out some inspirational images. So for this, I'm making a gingham blouse, and here is my fabric. This is a little sample of it. It is a polyester cotton blend with a really nice lightweight feel. So I think that'll be really nice for summertime. And then I just went on Google and Googled gingham blouses and printed out a bunch of styles that I liked to kind of help me along with what I want to make. So I love these kind of ruffle sleeves. You'll see that in a lot of them here. And then this one too. And then I just like how kind of boxy a lot of these fit. I think it's really cute and summery. So this is kind of what I'm feeling. So I found this pattern at my local fabric store, and I think it's actually funny because it is so similar to this little Zara top. It has the same kind of back detail. And I think it's really cute. So this is what I will be using on this particular blouse. It's view A. So when you buy a sewing pattern, a lot of times they have different views. It's the same basic shape, but then it'll have subtle changes usually. And this looks like a really simple pattern. So this would be a great one if you're just starting out to try out. And I'm gonna go ahead and get started cutting it out. It has 7 pieces to make this first view, view A. All right, let's see how long it takes. Here we go. Okay, so everything is laid out. I have the fabric laid out, and then each pattern piece is laid out in a grid on the fabric just to make sure that I have enough and I don't run out. So all I'm going to do now is pin these down with the little straight pins you can find at the sewing or fabric store. And this will just keep everything nice and still when I'm cutting it out so I don't get any weird kind of bunches in the fabric.
Jump down. I'll keep my status quo up here, won't let anybody come near. I'll fix it on my own.
Okay, so everything is cut out. Here are the 7 pieces. We've got the sleeves, and then this is the sleeve ruffle, neck facing for the front, and then the back, and then the front of the top, back of the top, and then that yoke type of situation. This pattern is going all over the place. That's on the back of the top. So this is everything that will go into this shirt, and hopefully it'll all go together really smoothly. I'm going to go ahead and get my machine set up, and then I'm gonna start on assembling the sleeves with those fun ruffles. I think that'll be really fun. So I'm gonna get started on that. All right, so you're here at the machine, and the first thing I'm going to work on for this project is the ruffle for the sleeve. So here's what that piece looks like. And what I'm going to do is sew each end of each piece together with a French seam. So a French seam is kind of a fancy sounding term, but it's really simple, and it's my favorite way to enclose a seam when it's a more fine, lightweight fabric like this, because it just looks really nice. And it's easy to do, and you don't need to get out a serger or overlocker or whatever you call it. So what I'm going to do is pin my ruffle together here at the edge. So you can see I folded it so that these ends match up. And usually when you are working with a sewing pattern, what they will do is allow 5/8 of an inch for your seam. So that means you have an extra 5/8 of an inch, and then that gets sewn and then maybe trimmed or something like that. But for a French seam, what you want to do is cut that in half, that amount. So I actually usually use a 1/4 of an inch seam when I do a French seam. It's just an easy number to go to, but you could do it exactly. and also 1/4 of an inch along this line. And then when I'm done with that, I'm going to flip this way, and then I'll trim that 1/4 of an inch and then sew another 1/4 of an inch on this side, and that just encases everything and makes it look really nice and neat. There are some good tutorials on French seams on YouTube, but I just thought I'd explain it a little bit, and that is what I'm going to do now. Okay, so there's the first seam, and then I'm going to trim it away and then fold it. Oh, there's a pin stuck. I'm going to trim it away and then fold it to the other side and sew that down so it'll be nice and neat. There we go, that is all trimmed. So now I'll just turn it this direction and then fold this down so that it's nice and flat. And then I'll use a couple of pins to secure that just so it's easier. And then sew another 1/4 inch seam down the same side. So now no matter what side you see this ruffle on, it looks nice and neat, which is good when it's a billowy sort of sleeve because you can sometimes see inside them, and I just like that sort of detail. So I'm going to go to my iron now and press this down. It's good to press each seam as you go when you're sewing. It makes things look a little bit more professional when you're done. So I'm going to do that and then I will be back. Okay, so I've pressed it and it looks nice and neat. So now I'm going to put my gathering stitches in along the top, which is what's going to make this a ruffle. And to do that, I'm just going to switch my machine to the highest stitch settings. So mine is a 5, it might be different on yours. And I'm going to put in 3 rows of stitches, all kind of next to each other, about 1/8 of an inch apart. And one good tip is to do 3 rows of stitches. It'll just look a lot more professional than if you just do 1 or 2. It makes things a lot more even, so the ruffle looks really neat. So I'm going to go ahead and sew those. I'm not going to try and talk while I sew because I don't think you'll be able to hear me. So now what I'm going to do is pull on the end here of these threads, and that will make this into a ruffle. So I'm going to start doing that. And you can see how it just gathers it up. That's why it's called gathering. And it makes it look really cool. I just love gathering fabric. I think it's so fun to watch it kind of transform. So I'm going to do that much on that side and then go from the other side just to keep things even. Okay, there we go. That's a little bit tighter than I will want it, but that will keep it nice and neat. And then I can just go and loosen it when I add it to the sleeve, which is what I'm going to work on next. So here is what a sleeve piece looks like, and the first part is really easy. All I'm going to do is sew these side seams together, and I'm going to do that with the French seam again, just because it won't have a lot of bulk and it'll look nice. Okay, so now you can see it's sewn together, and I've gone ahead and pressed it. So the next step for this top is to attach this ruffle to this sleeve, and it may seem kind of complicated, but it really isn't. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how I'm going to do that. So to attach the ruffle to the sleeve, all I want to do is put the right side of the ruffle with the right side of the sleeve and match up those side seams really nicely. And that will just keep everything from being too bulky on your arm. And then I'll just spread out the gathers so that it all matches up. Okay, so now the ruffle is pinned around the sleeve, so all I'm going to do is sew this together with a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. So now I'm just going to trim my threads and then trim this seam allowance off. And I think actually today, instead of using my serger, I'm going to just use the zigzag function on my sewing machine. It's a little bit easier and not as tedious to set up, and I don't really mind the look of it. So you could use an overlocker or your zigzag stitch, whatever you like, to finish that raw edge, just so it doesn't come out in the wash. So here's the first sleeve. I think it looks so cute with that ruffle. The only other thing to do on this is to hem it, and I'll wait and do that once it's attached to the shirt, kind of in the last steps of it. So I'm gonna go ahead and repeat all of those steps for the second one, but I think it's so cute, I'm excited. Okay, so we have 2 sleeves now. I'm about 50 minutes into the sewing process, and it is taking a little longer than usual just because I'm moving around cameras and stuff like that. But I am really happy with how these look. I think they're super cute. So I'm gonna go ahead and start now on putting the front and back together. I think the back may need to be done first because it has that ruffle. I'll have to check the instructions on that. Most things I'm pretty confident in just kind of figuring out because I have sewn for so long. But something like that that's a little bit more detailed, I will check the instructions. So I'm going to check those instructions and then put that together, and then we'll just add in the sleeves and do the facings and do the hems, and it should be not too much longer till it's done. So I think this was probably one of the most complicated parts, and I'm excited to see how the whole thing looks. It's going to be really cute. I have finished my cup of tea, so it is time for another one. So this is the back piece, and the first thing that I've done is to fold over the top. They have a fold line marked on the pattern. So I folded that and pressed it, and then what I'm going to do now is gather it right along this line right here, and that'll make that kind of ruffle effect that you can see in the picture. And then this will be sewn to this piece right here. So first I'm going to do the gathers and then sew it to this. Balancing on a weary line. So now I have those gathering stitches in, and I want this piece to fit to this yoke piece, so it's a couple of inches longer. So I'm going to gather this up, and that will make it fit together, and then pin it on. So I just gathered up that little bit of fabric on the back, and that's how it looks where it will be. I think that is such a cute little back neckline with this V and then the ruffles across. It's just so unique and really cute. So I'm excited about that. I'm going to go ahead and stitch this on now. I did just realize that before I do that, I actually need to sew this yoke to the front of the shirt and then do the neckline facing, just so that everything is a little bit easier. It would be kind of complicated to sew that facing on. A facing is just a piece that you will fold to the inside to make that edge nice and smooth. And it would be kind of complicated to do that once this is on, so I'm going to go ahead and do that first. Before I continue on though, I am going to take a little break because I need to go and teach a piano lesson this afternoon. So I have about 30 minutes before I need to go do that. So I'm gonna gather some materials and get stuff ready. And then when I come back a little bit later, I will finish up the top. I paused my timer so we can check and see how long it actually takes. Okay, so I am home. I finished teaching for the afternoon, and it is so hot outside, so hot that when I got in my car to drive to the school, I had my sunglasses on. They're not on my head anymore. I don't know why I'm doing this. And they just fogged over from the humidity and the heat. It's really awful. But I'm happy to be inside in the air conditioning, and I'm ready to get back to my sewing project. So first things first, I'm gonna get something to drink, and then I'm gonna head back and work on the blouse. So I will see you in a minute with the next step of the project. Here are the front and back pieces, and I'm ready to sew these together. This is that yoke piece from the back, and then just the plain front piece. So what I'm going to do is pin these shoulders together and do a French seam like I've done on several other steps. Okay, so now I am ready to attach this facing. So you can see I have the back piece and the front piece attached here at the shoulders. And I love how this neckline looks. It's so stinking cute. So to finish that neckline, I'm going to add the facing, like I said, and here is what the facing looks like. Oh, it's all tangled. So this mirrors the look of the neckline. So all I'm going to do is match it up around the neckline, and then I'll sew that on with a 5/8 of an inch seam, and then I'll probably zigzag around the edge of the facing itself just to keep everything nice and kind of secure from fraying. Here's the neckline now that the facing is attached. So you can see I zigzagged that edge and understitched it so it's laying nice and flat. So that's the front neckline there. And then when you flip over to the back, you can see this nice kind of squared V neckline. There's the thread I need to trim. Oh, it just came off. There we go. And that's laying really flat and nicely too. So now I just need to attach that back piece, and then we can start kind of the main construction of the shirt. So I have added the bottom part of the back piece, as you can see here, just stitched it right across here and then taken out the gathering stitches. I also added a hem to this because I realized that the instructions didn't say to hem it, but I didn't want a weird raw edge hanging out. And then I've gone ahead and pinned my side seams here. So this is the right side of the shirt, but I will do a French seam again. So I'll stitch on this side and then flip it around and stitch on the other side. So this is all ready to go. So I'm gonna stitch these side seams. Then we just need to add the sleeves and do the hem on the bottom and the hem on the sleeves, and this is done. Here is where we are with the top. I have the side seams all sewn. So this is the front, it's really simple. And then if I flip it over, we've got that really fun back situation, which I just love. So now it is ready for the sleeves, and to do the sleeves, what I want to do first is add a little bit of something called ease stitching to the sleeves where they'll be put into the armholes, and that'll just help it to fit a little better. All it is a kind of like a gather stitch around the edge, and you can pull it a little bit without gathering it to help it fit and look really nice. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then add the sleeves to the armholes, and then all we have left is the hem. So it's almost there, guys. We have a sleeve, we have a sleeve. I love how it looks. So now I just need to repeat that on the other side. And I did get a little bit of puckering at the shoulder, but it's not really enough to bother me. So I think it's gonna be so cute. We have 2 sleeves now, and all I have left to do is to hem the sleeves and the bottom of the shirt. So all I'm going to do for that is turn it under twice just to make it nice and neat and everything encased. So I'll turn it under twice and do a narrow hem. So I'm just gonna do a nice narrow hem, and then it will be all done. We're right at about 2.5 hours on this project, so that's pretty darn good if you ask me.
All right, guys, so I have come out to the garden. Hopefully you could kind of hear me. There are loud birds, but I wanted to show you the final result. It's actually a couple of days later because I wasn't able to film when I finished the shirt up the other night, but I love how it turned out. So you can see it has the ruffly fun sleeves, and then it's just really simple here in the front. I have it on today with some high-waisted jeans, really simple, and then the back, so fun. So the whole process took about 2.5 hours, like I said before, and the cost of this material was about $5, so it was really affordable, really fun project. I've spent longer than 2.5 hours looking for something to buy before, so yeah, 10 out of 10, would recommend. It's a great pattern if you're just starting out, super easy. So I'll have all that linked down below. If you guys enjoyed watching my first ever sewing vlog, I would love for you to let me know that so I can make more of these. I have a few more sewing projects lined up for the summer. I had a lot of fun filming this. It was a little bit complicated, but it was fun to do. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you'd like to subscribe to my channel, you can do that just by hitting the red button down below, and I will talk to you in my next video. Bye!
Let go. Why it's so hard to let go.